Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, today I have Mark Douglas on the line, and he's President and CEO over at LCPtracker, Inc. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Oh, man, so excited to get into some news today. We're going to talk about Project Astra that you have, but before we get into that, I want to go further into what you're doing over at LCPtracker. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so LCPtracker, well, we've been around since 2003, and we started building a tool called, it really stands for Labor Compliance Program. And what we do is we're designed around empowering people to build better communities. And we've been blessed to, provide a software platform to major government agencies and large prime contractors all throughout the country doing infrastructure projects, managing their workers on the site.
What are some of the challenges that you found? I know this is going to change from obviously client to client, but just in general, because there's a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives listening to this right now, and some may need to connect with LCPtracker. I mean, what are some of the problems or challenges you typically find that some of these sites have or clients prior to working with you?
Yeah, so the clients. Typically for our core product are government agencies and prime contractors, and they're managing, from a small $10 million construction project to well in excess of $1 billion. One of our largest is the Ram Stadium, a $5 billion project. But what they do is they manage their workforce for the construction site, the wages that are paid, the licenses that they're supposed to have to do the work. And as an example, you don't want a welder welding, structural beams on a skyrise when they're not really certified or trained to do that. So there's a whole slew of labor compliance laws all throughout the country that are required for construction workers, and our software has taken a paper-based system that would keep these folks in compliance to a web-based system, and it's all online databases, and we track today over 1 million workers on over 20,000 projects nationwide.
Wow, over 1 million workers. That's amazing. Let's get into Project Astra. So where do you want to start with this one?
Well, so let me tell you a little bit about how we got there before we do Project Astra. The real blessing came about 10 years ago for my company. So we've been monitoring these workers since 2003, and we keep building, and now we're at 1 million workers. But what happened is many of my clients started asking me to manage their workforce programs, community benefit agreements, local hire programs on these infrastructure projects. So what we did is we started monitoring workers that were getting hired by these local agencies to redevelop their communities. As an example, the Ram Stadium is about a $5 billion project that is revitalizing Inglewood. The several square miles of that area are now completely changing in its socioeconomic condition. And it was all private money, but the private owners that are building that stadium agreed with the city of Los Angeles and Inglewood. 30% of those workers would come from the project area, which was very poor. So our company monitors this data. We monitor the success of these agencies across the environment. So as I was able to kind of witness this over the past decade, hundreds of my projects have used our software to not only monitor the labor compliance, the workers, and all the rules and risk mitigation things they have to go through, the contractors have to go through to make sure they're in compliance with all the labor laws. I also have managed to monitor over 100,000 workers have been hired from these, what we call these disenfranchised areas. And these workers could be formerly incarcerated, could be, women, veteran, people that just didn't really have the opportunity in the past to get these kind of careers. So now they're into, a really high-paying middle-class income that is, fantastic for them. And so, being a witness to all this, I came up with an idea that I think we should take nationwide rather than having it just be local projects, and that's where I got the idea of Project Astra.
Wow, that's exciting. That's absolutely amazing. So over 100,000 workers already. And so let's go further into Project Astra. So give us some of the nuts and bolts of it.
Well, so Project Astra is, and this may sound crazy to you, but because
I like crazy, give it to us. I like crazy.
Yeah, some people think I'm crazy, but I think I just truly believe that I have found a way where we can solve poverty, we can eradicate poverty in this country. And it's because I've got to witness the economic rebirth of these hundreds of projects nationally in these local communities that have decided to do this community benefit agreement or local hire agreement and revitalize their community. But it's usually a small area. So what I came up with is my Project Astra idea. It's really simple. My mission is to create a national commitment to redirect 15% of existing federal infrastructure spending to the 15% of Americans that are still living in poverty. And I call this 15 for the 15. And how we're going to do this is there is already a law on the books called the Opportunity Zone. You may hear President Trump talk about it, and Senator Scott, who wrote the bill. They passed it 2 years ago when they passed the new tax law. And this gives private investors an investment strategy to go put a building or build structures or infrastructure in an opportunity zone, and they don't have to pay capital gains tax on it when they sell it. It's a great incentive to move, opportunity into these poor zip codes called opportunity zones. Well, that's just not enough, though, because you still have these very poor areas. You still have this trouble getting investors to do this. So with an investment of infrastructure, or 15% of our federal spending, which actually equates to about 50 to 70 billion annually, that'd be the 15% that we could put into these opportunity zones. Imagine the change that could occur in our disadvantaged communities.
Yeah, that's a big vision, Mark. You weren't joking when you said it was a big vision. That's a lot, but you're right. I see it. It can make a big difference. So where do you think something like this starts? Like, where are you at with Project Astra? I mean, give us some of there's people listening, and some of them are going to be interested. I mean, it sounds like a great idea. Where are you at with the project overall?
Okay, so really I have two main things I've got to get done, and I'm already having conversations with a number of congressmen and senators. I need to get traction, and I need to get people to help me get this idea out to politicians. I need politicians to buy into the fact that, hey, 95% of all infrastructure spending in the last 50 years has gone to the suburbs. We've got to put and have a national commitment to put money into these cities, into the poor cities. We're having these, we have all this money that we keep funding into the suburbs, but we don't reinvest into our cities. So we've got to get people into this national commitment, and we got to do that through the politicians. So anybody that would help me spread this word about this idea, 15 for 15, that would be very, very useful. I've also put together a website called projectastra.org, and I've got 3 pillars there where we talk about the rebuilding, the wealth creation, and the economic recovery, and how that all happens. And so the website, projectastra.org, is a beautiful place to go. And I'm also going to be posting in my next release of the website a map of the United States where these hundreds of projects that we've monitored and the programs that they've implemented. So people will be able to get a template. Any local community will be able to get a template to the city of Cleveland, how they did it, how city of Richmond is doing something. So I've got all these examples of how community benefit programs have worked locally. So if we can just get the commitment for the money to be dedicated to these communities through the federal government, and we can start publishing how people do this already. So this is already happening on a local grassroots thing, but we need to make a national commitment, is my feeling. And I think if we do that, we really can eradicate poverty in the next, I'd say, in the next 2 decades.
Man, that's absolutely amazing. I love this. I love big goals, and I love a big dream and something that you can really sink your teeth in. And something tells me you're going to be busy with this for decades to come. And I'm excited to watch the progress, and I'm excited to bring this to my listeners, especially as you're just kind of unrolling things and really gaining traction and buying. I'm looking forward to looking back and saying, I remember talking to Mark when we were talking about that on the podcast when he was trying to initially get support, and now look where he's at. I'm excited, Mark. This is big news, man. So let me ask you the question again. I know you left it once, but I know that some of the listeners didn't have time to write it down, or they're in front of their computers and they're like, oh, what was that website he said again? First off, what's the website for Project Astra again?
Well, so projectastra.org, and then my company website is LCPtracker.com. So that's where we do the heavy lifting, and we have all the data showing the results of these hiring programs. And then Project Astra is just about the political animal to, let's get this commitment nationally to invest this money. I'd say, hey, it's time we invested in Americans who deserve the same economic opportunities that the rest of America has.
Man, that's awesome. And I think that's also a great way to end it. So, Mark, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about all of the great work that you're doing over at the LCPtracker, of course. And I'm excited for that Rams Stadium, man. It's going to be awesome. And also all the great work you're doing at Project Astra. I mean, big, ambitious goal, and I love it. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Mark, thanks again for coming on the show.